Any other year, many LGBTQ plus neighborhoods across Canada would be bustling with pride-related events right now. But the pandemic has largely forced those events to either move online or be cancelled. Joining us this morning to talk about the effects of this and the overall health of our LGBTQ2 plus neighborhoods and communities, we're joined by the 519's Justin Kan. Justin, thank you for being here, and thank you for talking about this with us. Events including Pride Toronto are going to be held virtually this year, so they are still technically taking place. But talk to me about the implications, the real-world implications of losing the ability to gather, to physically socialize, and to celebrate in the middle of a city.
For sure, yeah, and good morning. Thanks for taking the time to speak with me, Ben. I think the fact that we're in a global pandemic, many organizations, including the 519, Pride Toronto, and other organizations around the world have moved to virtual events, to your point. But thinking about kind of a sense of community and coming together is really challenging for queer communities, trans communities, non-binary communities to have that visibility, to be together, to be present. And I commend these organizations who have the technology to move into a virtual realm. But I think what's important to remember that some of the most marginalized folks in and around kind of the country may not have access to things like unlimited data or the opportunity to log on a laptop to an event. So, they won't have that opportunity to connect this year. And I think also it's important to consider the fact that many folks who may be in quarantine or in isolation may be in households that aren't affirming. So by logging onto these events, there's the opportunity of outing themselves or putting themselves into danger if they're in non-affirming households.
Let's dive into the numbers a little bit. In the 2006 census, more than 40% of the residents in 9 tracts between Toronto and Montreal reported living in same-sex households. Fast forward 10 years to the 2016 census, only 1 tract had more than 20% of couples living in same-sex households. It likely has more to do with, the overall rapid growth of population, but is there any issue at all with the sense of identity in LGBTQ plus neighborhoods as a result?
Yeah, I think, we think about Toronto's Village, and it's always been a bit of a safe haven for queer, trans, non-binary communities. But I think it's important to really consider the fact that now more than ever, I think identities are important. We're continuing to see systemic racism, institutionalized racism, police brutality, and I think racialized people and their identities are at risk. But then when we put that into an intersectional lens and we're thinking about queer, trans, non-binary communities, it's really Black, Indigenous, people of color, queer folks who are now more, disproportionately affected by, kind of what's going on in and around the world. And I think we look at Toronto and, there is a large city where folks continue to feel safe. But I think, the local LGBT village in Toronto is a safe haven and will continue to be a safe haven for folks. And it's also about safe and affirming spaces where people can go and feel comfortable. So I think the sense of identity is now, incredibly important.
Justin, we have less than a minute left, but I want to talk about those communities. And those communities are made up of people, but they're also made up of businesses. And the pandemic is adversely affecting businesses clear across the country. But let's talk specifically about LGBTQ2 plus owned businesses and the knock-on effect that this pandemic is having.
Absolutely. The 519 has been around Toronto's Village since 1975. And I think as an organization, we've seen businesses open their doors and close their doors. And gentrification has, had a massive toll in and around the village. And now thinking, adding COVID-19 to that, these businesses operate on razor-thin margins. So they're disproportionately affected. And again, these are more than just local businesses. The fact that they're queer, trans, non-binary owned, has been a safe space for people to attend over the years. This is where, folks who are leading activism or leading protests meet and gather. And, a safe spaces as bars and restaurants and clubs. And, Fly, for example, was a nightclub that closed down. It was one of the only queer nightclubs in the village, and that's now gone. So queer-owned spaces are continuing to close, and I think it's really affecting the community and their safe spaces where they're able to attend and visit.
Well, Justin Kan, we should remind everyone that while these events are happening virtually, Pride is very real. I wish you a very happy Pride, and I thank you for joining us today.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Happy Pride. Take care.
Thanks for watching. If you like this, be sure to subscribe here.
And you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.